I'm Joe, and I work as a security guard on Eldridge Street. It's a part of town that time forgot, with its cobbled streets, old buildings, and a few family-run businesses. Each building has its own story, but there's one that's always been a bit of an enigma, an old, abandoned structure that's been standing empty for as long as anyone can remember. Locals say it's cursed, but I'm not one to believe in ghost stories. My routine was pretty uneventful until a few months back when a new face showed up in the neighborhood. Mike, a guy in his 30s, moved into the apartment across from the abandoned building. He was a friendly sort, always had a smile and a way for everyone. But there was something about him that seemed out of place. He wasn't just interested in the abandoned building, he was obsessed with it. He would ask endless questions about its history, who owned it, and why it was left to rot. I remember the night things took a strange turn. It was a cold, foggy evening, and the street was eerily quiet. I was doing my usual rounds when I noticed flickering lights in the windows of the abandoned building. My first thought was that some kids had broken in and were messing around. So, I decided to go over and check it out. The front door, usually bolted shut, was ajar. I pushed it open and stepped into the musty darkness. Inside, I found Mike, standing alone in the middle of the dust-covered floor, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I called out to him, asking what he was doing there, but before I could get an answer, he bolted past me and disappeared into the night. The next morning, the news spread that Mike was missing. The police started their investigation, knocking on doors, gathering information. I told them about finding him in the building and his strange fascination with it. They didn't seem to take the situation seriously at first, labeling him as just another adult who'd chosen to disappear. As days turned into weeks, a sense of unease began to settle over Eldridge Street. People whispered about the building's curse, and some even claimed to see shadows moving behind the boarded-up windows. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Mike's disappearance than met the eye. Then, about a month after Mike vanished, the city decided to tear down the building. As the demolition crew worked, they uncovered a hidden basement beneath the rubble. Inside, it was evident someone had been living there. There were blankets, a few personal belongings, and old photographs scattered around. But of Mike, there was no trace. The real twist came when I took a closer look at the photographs. They were old, dating back decades, and showed the building in its prime. But in each photo, standing in the background, was a figure that bore an uncanny resemblance to Mike. It was as if he'd been a part of the building's history all along. Rumors started to swirl. Some said Mike was a ghost, doomed to wander the building forever. Others thought he'd stumbled upon a secret so dark it swallowed him whole. The truth remains buried in the rubble of that old building. And as for me, I'm left wondering if some mysteries are better left unsolved.